message, they like your charisma, they like a lot of things. They don't like your age. They say you're too young. How do you square that with Iowans in a caucus where there are so many different people to choose from and people who have, legislative, gubernatorial experience?
The question is, am I too young? What do you think, guys? Is it too young or not? No. Thomas Jefferson was 30 years old when he wrote the Declaration of Independence. Alexander Hamilton was 24 at the time. Years later, he wrote the Federalist Papers along with John Jay and James Madison. So do I think those guys were too old, too young to set this nation into motion? You're darn right they weren't. Okay? So, look, I think that it takes a person of a different generation to reach the next generation. Young people have lost their sense of national pride. 25% recruitment deficit in the U.S. military. 60% of young Americans say in some form or other they're not proud. Less than 16% of Gen Z is even proud to be American. I don't think an octogenarian can re-inspire and reignite pride in the next generation. I've got fresh legs. I'm not yet jaded and cynical. I think it takes a person, I hope, God willing, whose best days are ahead of himself, to see a nation whose best days are ahead of itself too. That's the truth. And so, it's my conviction that I'm going to be able to lead this nation forward, looking to ask the question, what are we running to, instead of asking the question of what are we running from. And that's the real choice we face. It's not young or old. It's that, do you want to be running from something, or do you want to be running to something? I'm the candidate in this race who's leading us to something. It so happens, and it's not a coincidence, that I am the candidate from a different generation. And that's the choice the voters are going to have to make. That's not up to me, that's up to the people of this state. My job is to let them know who I am and what I stand for. I'm not going to change my age except for one more time before the general election. I already changed it once 3 days ago. So I turned 38. Before I'm president, I'll be 39. But that'll be my last flip-flop on age. But it's going to be up to the people to decide whether or not they believe that, yes, a member of a new generation can actually, who would have ever thought, be the one who chases our future instead of chasing our past. Thank you.
Yes.
Focus on resilience. We need to build up resilience through actual mastery of the circumstances we face. It is false hubris to say that we should want to change the way a complex climate actually operates. That is human hubris, what Friedrich von Hayek would have called a fatal conceit of man, what I will call, potentially quite literally, a fatal conceit of man. I will remind you that in the 1970s, the cover of Time magazine or Newsweek warned of, anybody know this? The looming Ice Age. You know it. What do you do in Iowa? Remind me? We spoke earlier. Yeah. What do you do here? You work in Iowa, right? Yes. He's a fellow Iowan right here, right? And so he's been affected by the same things that you're talking about. I live in Ohio. We were warning of a looming ice age in the 1970s. Now we say you have to do the exact same thing to avoid global warming.
What policies would you enact?
What policies would you enact? Yeah, here's the policy that I would act. I will take the climate questions all day because I am done with this hoax. We're abandoning the anti-carbon agenda in this country. We're abandoning the apologist self-flogging agenda. People somehow are obsessed with carbon emissions in the United States without having a peep to say about carbon emissions being shifted to places like China. And by the way, the same people who are hostile to carbon emissions are also hostile to nuclear energy. Go scratch your head with that one. This has nothing to do with the climate. It is about power, dominion, control, and punishment. It is about flogging the West, America in particular, getting China and the rest of the world to catch up. That is what this agenda is about. It deserves to be called out for what it is.